Welcome to a presentation regarding the retirement from the non-uniformed pension plan, the City of El Paso. The plan is called the City of El Paso Employees Retirement Trust, and my comments today are twofold. One, to prepare you for retirement after your many years of service, and two, to really provide you insight about the application process. And the presentation's broken into a couple parts. If I were to break it into parts, first would be kind of a summary about the pension plan that you're participating in, and the second, how we go ahead and apply for benefits. My comments today are only geared towards the non-uniform pension plan. The city has 3 pension plans. One's for firefighters, one's for police officers, and the other is the non-uniform personnel. And my comments today only regard the non-uniform personnel. The other 2 plans are governed separately and have their own rules, which they need to follow. So first of all, congratulations. You've put many years of service into the City of El Paso, and congratulations. If you're thinking about retiring, you've contributed to the plan for many years, and I think you're taking a good first step. Knowing about the plan and the process to retire is one key to success. So congratulations for listening to this presentation. It's about 30 minutes long, maybe a little longer, but you can refer to it on our webpage over and over. Our building is located at 1039 Chelsea Street, and my name is Robert Ash. I am the Executive Director and Legal Advisor for the Trust. We also have our employees on this page. The employees you'll most see is Alma Duenas, Esmeralda Aguirre, and Pauline Castillo. They provide services to our employees who have not yet retired. David Garcia is in charge of the retirees. So once you retire, then you'll switch over and visit David Garcia. We also have a website, and I refer you to this website. Obviously, you're looking at this presentation from the website, but eppension.org is the address for our website, and it has many cool features that hopefully you'll access to stay attuned to what's happening with your pension plan. Key is one of the benefit calculators, which is up in the top right-hand corner, which I'll remind you about later in the presentation. Our pension trust is a defined benefit retirement plan, and that's different than a defined contribution plan. And so when people talk about retirement plans, they typically talk about defined contribution plans, because in the private sector, individuals contribute to defined contribution plans. The city has a defined contribution plan. It's the 457B plan, which you optionally can make contributions to. But that's different than what I'm talking about today. The plan that you contribute to from your paycheck, where 8.95% of your paycheck right now is going to a retirement fund, that is a defined benefit plan. And the city sponsors a defined benefit plan for most employees. And it's called a defined benefit plan because it's based on a formula. The benefit is defined by a formula. And that formula I'm going to tell you about several times, but it's basically your years of retirement service credit, not the years that you've been employed with the city, but the years you paid into this trust, times a benefit multiplier, which right now is 2.5%, times final wages. And final wages is a term of art we'll get into later. That's different than a defined contribution plan, because a defined contribution plan has benefits based on what you contribute and what you earn in its investments. And so there, the benefit isn't defined by a formula. It's defined by what you put into this plan, what you may or may not make in whatever investments you may choose to make, and whatever ends up is what your benefit is. That's different from a defined benefit plan that you've been contributing to through the retirement trust, which is benefit based on a formula. And we just went over that formula. Your retirement benefits are funded by a combination of 3 different things. One, your employee contributions. The employer puts in contributions into this plan too, but they're not yours and accessible to you. That's used to pay a retirement benefit. And then the trust invests those contributions, and the earnings on those investments go to fund your retirement benefit. As of 2014, again, your contribution's been 8.95%. So every time you get paid from the city, 8.95% comes out of your paycheck. You may have noticed that. we take that on a pre-tax basis. It lowers your taxable income for tax purposes, but you're taxed once you receive a benefit. The city, on the other side, is putting in 14.05%, but again, that's the city's contributions, not yours. Now, our plan, our trust, is governed by the El Paso Municipal Code. If you were to go to section 2.64, which you can find online, you'll be able to see every provision regarding the retirement trust. But it's about 40 pages long. It's full of legalese. Your summary plan description that we hand out to you periodically is an easier read, and you can access those on our website as well. Because it's governed by an ordinance, it can only be changed by an ordinance amendment. And the people that do that are the city council. The board of trustees that helps manage the fund, the employees, can't change any provision. It's really governed by an ordinance. However, there is a board of trustees that govern the administration of the trust, and they're given that power by the ordinance. And our board of trustees has 4 elected employee representatives. So periodically, you'll be asked to vote, or you have been asked to vote, for employee representatives to serve on our board of trustees. The mayor then nominates 5 other people. So I have a total of 9 people on the board, 4 elected, 5 are appointed. The mayoral appointments are the retiree representative, who was a former city employee and participant in the plan, 2 city council representatives, and 2 citizens appointed by the mayor and council. That makes up our 9-member board of trustees that administers the trust. We also have 2 tiers in our retirement trust. Those who were participating prior to September 1st, 2001, so you were hired and making contributions at that time, and those who were hired after. And those 2 tiers have different levels of benefits, but the same contributions. And so we'll get into those 2 tiers and what those benefits are as we proceed. So in order to get any benefit in the form of a monthly retirement, kind of like Social Security pays every month, our trust will pay every month if you meet certain requirements. And our minimum vesting, just to get a monthly annuity type of payment from the trust, is 40 years of age and 10 years of retirement credit. Again, retirement credit is paying into the fund, not being employed by the city. That employed by the city doesn't do it. You have to be paying into the fund for 10 years, or 45 years of age and at least 7 years of credit. So tier 1, you can get the minimum to get a monthly amount with age 40 and 10 years paying into the fund, or for tier 1 or tier 2, pay into the fund for 7 years and be at least age 45. So this gets you over the bar, the minimum hurdle, to get a monthly payment from the retirement trust. We have different forms of retirement. And this is where it gets a little bit tricky and you got to pay a little special attention. Remember, we just talked about the minimum amount of service and age that you have to get a benefit. But we have different types of benefits. We have things called age and service retirements. That's what we call our normal retirement. So it's not the minimum. This is what we expect normally to happen if you put in a full-length service career. Then we have an early retirement. So in the example I just gave you with the minimum qualifications to get a benefit, well, if you start receiving your benefit early because you're only age 40 or age 45, we're going to pay it out for a longer period of time. And because of that, we're going to reduce the amount based on an actuarial determined factor. So we pay you the same amount over your lifetime, but because we're paying it early and we're paying it longer, the amount that you get on a monthly basis is reduced. But you can avoid that by doing a deferred retirement. A deferred retirement is basically, yes, you're going to retire because you meet that minimum vesting, but you want to take that reduction in pay until you're older. You want to just leave the money in our fund, retire from the fund, but choose to withdraw or start receiving payments later when you're older. And that reduces or eliminates that early reduction factor, which can be significant in some cases, and we'll get into that. So it's not as easy as it seems. We went over the minimum. Now I'm telling you about different options of different types of retirement that you have to think about when you're planning your retirement. So our age in service retirement, which what I just told you was our normal, when we think you've put in kind of a full career, happens for Tier 1 at age 55 with 10 years of service, or 60 years of age with 7 years of service. Or the last option is, no matter what your age is, if you put in 30 years of service, we consider that a normal retirement. So if you come right out of high school and you're 17 or 18 or 19, whatever age you are when you get out of high school, you put in 30 years, you're not going to be age 55 or 60. But we're going to treat you like you were because you put in 30 years of service. And so nothing will be reduced. We'll consider that a full career for purposes of calculating your pension benefit. So we've got 3 different factors there that we consider kind of a full benefit. Age 55 with 10 years of service, or age 60 with 7 years of service, or 30 years of retirement service credit. Again, retirement service credit doesn't mean employed by the city. It means paying into the retirement trust for 30 years. So, if you're in Tier 2, a little bit different. I just went over Tier 1's qualifications. For Tier 2, that's not age 55 and 10 years of service. That option's off the table. Tier 2, it's 60 years with 7 years of service credit, or age with 35 years of service credit at any age. So Tier 1, a little bit less time, don't have to be as old. Tier 2, a little bit older, still 7 years of service credit, or 35 years of paying into the fund, where Tier 1 was 30. So if you're hired after September 1st of 2011, you're Tier 2, remember, and so these rules would apply to you. Okay, early retirement. When we talked about what the minimum vesting requirements were, we were talking about early retirement. This is the earliest time that you can retire with a monthly benefit from the retirement trust. In Tier 1, it's 40 years of age with 10 years of service credit, or 45 years of age with 7 years of service credit. Now we're going to apply a reduction factor. The actuary for the fund comes up with your life expectancy, and because we're paying it out instead of age 55 or 60, we're paying it out at age 45 or 40, we pay for an additional 15 years or so. Because of that, to equalize things, we're going to reduce the amount you get on a monthly basis. And that's what we mean by early retirement. So for Tier 1, it's age 40 with 10 years of service, or age 45 with 7 years. For Tier 2, our early retirement starts with age 45 with 7 years of service. A little bit different. For Tier 1, start at age 40 with 10 years. Tier 2, 45 with 7 years. What are the advantages and disadvantages of any of these decisions? Let me be frank. I am not your attorney. I'm not a financial advisor. You should seek their help if you feel uncertain about any of your decisions. They're professionals who can guide you on what's better, when, and if. But I can give you some general guidelines or rules that you might want to take consideration of. There are both advantages and disadvantages for taking your retirement early. What's best for you depends on your personal circumstance, which I don't know, and our pension staff won't be able to advise you on. But the one advantage may be that you collect for a longer period of time. If you have to wait till age 55 or 60 to receive your benefit, but you could get it at age 45, you can see that you'll take a benefit, although reduced, for a longer period of time. The disadvantage is it's permanently reduced. You can't come back and say, no, I changed my mind, I want to defer it again. Once you make a retirement decision, once you select an option, and it's approved by our Board of Trustees, it's pretty much final unless you're rehired by the city. Again, each person's situation is a little bit different. And you have to take into account not only what you're going to get at the time of retirement from this retirement trust, but if you have savings, if you have additional retirement accounts, whether it be an IRA, or one of those defined contribution accounts, whether you're going to be employed after this. All of those things should enter into your mind as to, is this the right time, and can I live in the style that I'm accustomed to based on the income I'm going to get from the retirement trust. Again, early, we reduce the amount you get on a monthly basis, but you get it for a longer period of time. Deferred retirement, another little option. Here, you meet the requirements for an early retirement, but you've thought about those advantages and disadvantages. You've consulted whoever you needed to, and you've come to the conclusion, you know what, I don't need this money now. I can defer receiving the monthly payment from the trust till I'm older at a later date. And when I do that, as I get closer to my normal retirement age, I reduce the amount of reduction because I'm younger, because I'm going to defer receiving the benefit till I'm older. And when that age gets closer to your normal retirement age, the reduction factor decreases. In essence, you get more if you wait and you don't need the money. Some people need the money, and so they take it early. Some have other jobs, other income, and they defer payment until later as they approach that normal retirement age to get a little more in their monthly amount that they'll receive. Now, when you come to our office, we'll provide an estimate to you, and we'll give you all of the numbers that you need so that you can compare. What would I get early? If I chose the early retirement. What would I get if I deferred to a later date? What would I get if I waited until I reached my normal retirement age? We'll provide you that information. But just understand for now, there is a difference, and that choice is yours. We also offer disability retirements. Our standard for a disability retirement is higher than Social Security. It's governed by ordinance. You have to be totally and permanently disabled from your job with the city or any other job from which you are qualified by training and experience. If you experience a job-related injury, you must show not only that you're totally and permanently disabled, as I just went through the qualification, but you have to also show that it happened while you're working, while you were actually on the job. When and if you can do that, then there is no minimum age or service requirement, as is our standard benefit formula. The benefit's based on your retirement service credit. So you could work here a year or 2 years, not the 7 years that's typically required. And if you're disabled due to an injury on the job that renders you totally and permanently disabled not only from your job with the city, but any kind of job, no matter where, then you may be able to achieve a job-related disability. There is a minimum of $250 a month that we would pay, but even if you didn't have the 7 years to meet our minimum vesting, we would pay you based on the actual number of years that you worked. Now, other people may be able to apply for a non-job related disability. People get injured outside of work. It could be, God forbid, a car accident, a slip and fall. You could fall off a ladder at home. You could come down with an illness that makes you totally and permanently disabled. It didn't happen on the job though, but you may be able to apply for a non-job related disability. Here, there's no minimum age requirement, but you have to have at least 7 years of paying into the fund. The same standard to get a non-job related disability is totally and permanently disabled from your job with the city or any other job for which you are qualified by training and experience. It's a high hurdle, but if you feel that you're eligible for one of these type of retirements, make sure you tell one of our staff members. They'll ask you, but make sure you tell them this is what you're interested in. And by the way, the proof is on the applicant to prove that they meet that requirement. So we'll ask you for medical evidence. The benefit calculation, again, one of my first slides was it's based on a formula, and that formula, if you remember, was the years of service credit, paying into the fund times a multiplier. That multiplier is different for Tier 1 and Tier 2. For Tier 1, it's 2.5%. For Tier 2, 2.25% times final wages. And final wages is a term of art, and we're going to get into that in a minute. But it's a real important component of that benefit calculation. In addition, every 22 days, 8-hour days of unused sick leave will give you 1 month of additional service credit. And 6 months can be used towards meeting your minimum service vesting requirements. I can't make people older. We can't do that by ordinance with your unused sick leave, but we can add service. So if in fact you have 22 days of unused sick leave or any fraction thereof, we'll give you another month's worth of service credit. And we can use 6 months of it to meeting those minimum vesting standards. Remember, our minimum vesting standards is either 10 years, for Tier 1, or 7 years for both Tier 1 and Tier 2 at a higher age limit. So if you had 6.5 years and you had 6 months of unused sick leave, we could use that to get you to the 7 years you need to retire. Question I always get, is there a limit on the amount of unused sick leave that you can use? And the answer is no. So whatever you leave city employment with, and it's always good to check, make sure what that balance is, then for every 22 days of unused sick leave, we'll give you another month's worth of service credit. So that helps you. It increases your benefit if you have unused sick leave at the time you retire. Final wages, I told you, was a term of art, and it's used differently for both Tier 1 and Tier 2. For Tier 1 employees, and those are the ones, again, who are hired and participating in the trust before September 1st, 2011, it's the greater of 3 different calculations. 1, your average monthly gross earnings over the prior 3 years, and this would include overtime. Or your average monthly base salary in the prior year right before you retire. Or 3, your base salary for the month prior to retirement. 2 and 3 on that list don't include overtime. The only one that includes overtime is the calculation number 1. We will give you the highest of those 3 different calculations. So if you work some overtime but not a lot, remember that's averaged over a 3-year period. We'll compare it to the other types of calculations and we'll provide you with the highest final salary limit that there is. The benefit limit, the amount that we can pay out, is limited by the IRS code. Most people don't run into a problem with that benefit limit, but there is a limit designated by the IRS code. For Tier 2, it's a different calculation. So final wages, remember, is a term of art. For Tier 1, we told you there was 3 different calculations we'll perform. We'll give you the highest of the 3. For Tier 2, it's different. Tier 2, employees hired after September 1st, 2011, it's not more than 90% of your 3-year average final pay. So we're going to take an average of your last 3 years' pay before you retire, and that's going to be what your final pay is. And your benefit cannot exceed 90% of that. And there also is a prescribed limit by the IRS, just like for Tier 1, that also may come into play, although doubtful. So you can see that benefit formula again was your years you pay into the fund times a multiplier. Tier 1, 2.5%, Tier 2, 2.25%, and then this final pay. And remember, it's different for Tier 1 and Tier 2. But that drives your calculation, your benefit calculation. Here's some examples. Here's an example. Tier 1, we've got an employee put in 20 years of service, paid into the fund 20 years based on their service, and terminated at age 55. At final wages of $3,000 a month. So based on that formula that we've talked about over and over, your years of paying into the fund was 20 times a benefit multiplier of 2.5%, because that's the multiplier for Tier 1, times their final wages. This employee would be able to receive $1,500 a month. 20 years of service times the multiplier times their final salary. For Tier 2, we have a similar employee, paid into the retirement trust for 20 years, terminates employment at age 60, meets certainly the vesting, has the same final wages of $3,000 a month. But remember, the final wage is different for Tier 2 than Tier 1 in calculating it. It's the average of the 3 years. In this case, we averaged the last 3 years of this employee's service pay, and we got a final average wage of $3,000 a month. We didn't take the last 30 days. We didn't take the last year. We didn't take the average of the last 3 years like we would for Tier 1, but it's $3,000. It's the same. So $3,000 times 90% benefit limit, $2,700 is what this person would be able to receive. So it's based on a formula. The formula is pretty clear. Here's a retirement calculation for Tier 2. 20 years of service, 2.25% multiplier. Remember, that's statutory, can only be changed by City Council, times final wages, $1,350 a month. When we do that calculation, it doesn't exceed 90% of what their benefit was before, and so there's no IRS limit that's applied to it. And so this calculation basically would be what that person in Tier 2 would be able to receive. So again, for purposes of calculating the maximum benefit, it would be $2,700 a month. Remember, you get that benefit up to 90% of your salary. It would be $2,700, what would be the maximum benefit limit. In this case, the employee is only going to get $1,350 a month, so that maximum limit does not apply. Early retirement. We have the same fact situation that we just went over, but this time they're retiring early. They meet the minimum vesting requirements, but you're retiring not at age 55 or 60 for Tier 1, you're retiring at age 45, which means we're going to pay out for a longer period of time. And because of that, we go through the same basic formula, but this time we're going to apply that actuarial reduction factor to make up for the difference because we have to pay it out for a longer period of time. So 20 years paying into the fund times that benefit multiplier of 2.5% times final wages, which we decided was $3,000, but now we have to reduce it. And because we're going to pay it out for a longer period of time, then instead of getting $1,500 a month, we're going to reduce it by 43.59%. So you get $653.85 a month. So it's a significant reduction when you retire early versus deferring it until you're older or until you reach your normal retirement age. Same example for Tier 2. 20-year employee paying into the fund for 20 years, multiplier is different. Remember, it's 2.25 as opposed to 2.5. Same final wages, we apply the early reduction factor, $377.46 a month. The good thing is, you don't have to do this calculation. You can go to our webpage, eppension.org, click on that button that says Benefit Calculator. It'll ask you to fill in some blanks. And so you'll be able to have our online calculator figure out what all these numbers are. So you will be asked, did you participate before September 1st, 2011? If the answer is no, you're in Tier 2. If the answer is yes, you're in Tier 1. The calculator will figure that out for you. Then it's going to ask you your marital status. Are you single or are you married? Then it'll ask you, how many years have you worked contributing to the pension trust? Put in the full years. Then the next line is the number of months in addition to those full years that you've contributed to the pension trust. Then it'll ask you your monthly salary, not your biweekly salary, but this is your gross amount per month. Take your annual salary, divide it by 12, that's your monthly salary. Then it'll ask you your age at retirement. And if you're married, it'll ask you your spouse's age. You go down and push the button that says, I agree to the terms that this is merely an estimate, and it'll come forward and give you a calculation. And you can play what-if scenarios with this. So if you want to sit there in front of your computer and say, I think I'm going to get an increase in the next month or two or a year or two, and so I want to see what it'll be like if I wait a year or two, based on that increased amount that you're going to have in your monthly salary, this is very accurate. And so it's a good tool to use in your retirement planning. I encourage you to visit our website. You're already visiting our website by listening to this presentation, but use this benefit calculator. It'll help you a lot in making your determination on whether this is a time to retire or not. We also offer survivor benefits. So you are entitled to a benefit until you die, but you may have other people, your wife, your kids, who may also be entitled to benefits. Qualified beneficiaries, should you predecease them, and they're listed on your application, maybe your widow. The spouse has to be married to you at the time of your retirement, and they cannot have remarried. Or if you have unmarried children under the age of 19, they will take a benefit based on your retirement. We also provide retirement benefits for children even older than age 19 if they are incapacitated. And incapacitation needs to be proven, and the board determines whether they meet the standard of being incapacitated. Those payments will continue as long as the child remains incapacitated. What's best for you? It's always a good question. It's one that people struggle with. If you're struggling with it, you're not alone. It's a big decision. Retirement is a change of lifestyle. And you've been working for many years, you've been contributing to the trust for many years, but now it's kind of a lot of questions that you got to figure out. And it's a big change. And we'll work with you. The pension trust office staff will meet with you time and time again, give you any information that you need. But I can tell you this, out of all my years being the director of the retirement trust, most people get the decision right. They figure out, is it a good time to leave or not? And I can tell you, of all those retirees that I've seen, all those employees that have come to our office, and some many times before they make their choice, most of them get it right. At least 90% say, yep, I did it at the right time. But there's no one-size-fits-all type of solution. You have to really think about this. Think about all your income streams, what your lifestyle is going to be like, and figure out, is now the best time to retire? We'll provide you the information, but we can only provide you with part of the information. We can provide you the information regarding the retirement trust, but Social Security, that's going to be an income stream for most people at some point. You paid into Social Security while you were a member of this retirement plan. If you have other savings, if you're going to expect an inheritance, I don't know what your situation is. We can't advise you on that. But I strongly suggest you think of all those factors, what your income is going to be from all those sources at different periods of time, and then figure out, is this a good time to retire? One of the things that we do when we calculate a retirement benefit is we give you different options on what you may leave a widow if you predecease them. And we went over that just a minute ago. We have beneficiaries many times as part of your retirement benefit. And if you were to come in with a spouse at the time of retirement, you will be asked to select what we call an optional settlement. The first type of optional settlement is life only. If you're single at the time of retirement, this is your only option. But it pays for your life, there's no survivor benefits, and it's the maximum you can get from the retirement trust on a monthly basis. If you're a married employee and pick this option, it requires spousal consent. In other words, this is community property in the state of Texas, and so your spouse is going to consent by initialing by your election that you've elected life only. In that event, even though you're married, you'll leave nothing to your spouse. It's a good thing to discuss before you get to our office. Our normal spousal benefit is 2/3 of what you get in retirement. A payment is made for your life. If you predecease your spouse, then we pay 2/3 of that amount to your surviving spouse. There's no adjustment in the benefit formula. This is what we call our normal benefit. This is what most people do, but you don't have to do it because we've got other options for you. Instead of life only and joint in 2/3, you can leave your spouse the same amount you're getting in your monthly retirement. So it's a payment for your life, and if you predecease your spouse, they'll continue to receive the same amount. We adjust the factor because it's more than our normal amount that you'll leave your spouse, so you get a little less during your lifetime, but survivor gets more than 2/3. They get 100% of what you were making before. So there is an adjustment. You're taking a little less now. You're providing your spouse, if you predecease them, a little more if that happens. And our last option is joint in 50%. Here, you get an amount for your life, and your spouse will only get half the amount if you predecease them. We apply our actuarial reduction factor to that, but the effect is you get more now, your spouse gets a little bit less. And so our joint in 2/3, you get an amount, your spouse gets 2/3. This is less than that. Your spouse is getting 50%. What that means is we'll adjust yours a little higher. So all of those options will be discussed with you, and the amounts for each one of those options will be disclosed to you at the time you come in for an estimate. You can discuss that with your spouse. Make the decision best for you. There are a few principles, no matter what options you choose, that I have to advise you on. First one is your retirement payment continues for your lifetime. This is your retirement. You can't change your choice, though, due to circumstances. So if conditions change later after your application's been to the board and been approved, we can't go back and redo. The IRS won't let us do that. whatever you choose is kind of fixed at that point. So even if your circumstances change, let's say your wife gets sick or your husband gets sick, and you think they may not be around to get a survivor benefit, you'd want to go back and change it. We won't allow you to do that. So whatever your circumstances are, if you get sick, whatever your circumstances are, once that retirement application's been approved by the board, we cannot allow you to go back and change that. And that includes your joint and survivor option. So again, this is your benefit. Your benefit continues for your lifetime. But I can just tell you, be careful, discuss what you're going to choose, be on the same page if you're married. It makes for a happier decision-making process. But whatever happens, once it's been to the board, that whatever options you select as far as optional settlements has to remain, even though circumstances may have changed. Is your benefit taxable? And the answer is yes. Remember, we've taken out on a pre-tax basis. For some people in Tier 1, you had some post-tax contributions. But all of Tier 2, pre-tax contributions, we started taking pre-tax contributions, I believe, in 2007. So if you were employed after that date, everything will be pre-tax. And because of that, it is subject to taxation. So you can recover any post-tax contributions over your life expectancy in accordance with the IRS tables, but most of your benefit will be taxable. Here's an example. Let's say we have someone that contributed, put in $20,000 into the trust, gets an annual retirement of $20,000 and contributed $35,000 post-tax. That's not pre-tax, that's post-tax. The rest of it was pre-tax. Annual retirement's $20,000. They put in $35,000 post-tax, so they were here before 2007. The IRS says you're going to live 30 years. The IRS knows everything. In this case, for purposes of tax calculations, there's a table that said you'll live 30 years. So the annual tax exempt amount is $1,166.67, but your taxable amount of that $20,000 you're going to get every year is $18,833. So you can see the majority, 90% of it is taxable. So again, think mostly it's all going to be taxed. Especially if you were hired after 2007, I guarantee you it'll all be taxed. And we'll take tax withholding information as part of your retirement application. The point being, count on it being taxed. Cost of living increases. Unlike Social Security, we don't guarantee any cost of living increase. There's no provision in the pension ordinance. However, there is a provision that says the board can review after an actual evaluation whether they can grant a cost of living increase. So the board actually has a policy on when they won't and when they will grant a cost of living increase, but they're all ad hoc. Nothing is guaranteed. So when you leave employment, when you start receiving a pension benefit, we will advise you, don't ever expect a cost of living increase. They may happen occasionally, but nothing is guaranteed. Nothing is provided by the plan other than an ad hoc review to see if one can be paid. And the last many that have been paid over the last 20 years have been in the form of a 13th check. Didn't affect your base pay. Some type of additional payment that was made. Again, nothing is guaranteed. Don't count on it. It's part of your retirement planning process. What happens if you were part of a divorce at some point? So whether a member is receiving benefits or will receive one in the future, trust benefits are considered a marital asset under Texas law. And they're subject to division as part of a divorce decree. So if in fact you were married and got divorced, or you're a participant now and you're going to get divorced in the future, this is something that you have to keep in mind. It's subject to being divided. So in essence, a divorce decree through a quadro, a qualified domestic relations order, can actually take part of your benefit away. A qualified domestic relations order is an order or a judgment by a court that comes to the pension trust and directs that we withhold part of your retirement payment. And it's usually based on a formula, but it's agreed to either by the parties or, obviously we have a court order, but the judge has told the retirement trust, we have to withhold part of your retirement benefit. And so If you're divorced, look for that in your retirement planning process. If you've ever been divorced while you were employed by the city and contributing to the fund, or if you were to get divorced in the future after starting to receive benefits, we may be subject to that quadro, which may reduce the amount of benefits that you may get on a monthly basis. Remember that we have to do this. It's not up to the pension board, it's not up to the staff, it's a court order. And it has to be qualified. If you are in the process of getting divorced, or if you've been divorced and you think you may be subject to division of your property, your retirement, we can give you guidelines to take to your attorney. We also have quadros for child support arrearages from time to time. If in fact you owe child support and are in arrear, then we may get something from the state that basically says the AG is contacting us to withhold an amount from your pension. It rarely happens, but it is subject to that type of quadro as well. We also participate in a thing called a PRP, a proportionate retirement program. It's a lot of things to say. There's about 7 or 8 different retirement plans across the state of Texas, mostly state plans, that participate in the proportionate retirement plan. And what that does, it allows you to keep your service credit here and transfer that service credit for purposes of vesting in another plan. So if you knew you were going to leave the city of El Paso, you had time with our trust, and you were going to another plan that participated, you may be able to vest sooner there. But it's only limited towards service credit in meeting vesting requirements, that minimum threshold in order to receive a benefit. We don't switch money, we don't do any of those things, but it has to be from a participating fund. These are the funds that participate in that proportionate retirement program. So if you can see, it's the Employment Retirement System of Texas, the Teacher Retirement System of Texas, both Judicial Retirement Systems of Texas, Austin Employees, Austin Police, and El Paso Fire and Police pension funds. If you knew you were going to go to one of those funds, then you may want to consider leaving your service credit with us, deferring any type of payment, and using that service credit with that new fund that participates in one of these plans. So if you were going to leave employment with the city, become a teacher, and you were going to participate in the Teacher Retirement System of Texas, one of the things that you may do, you're not required, but you may consider in your retirement planning is leave your money with us so you can invest sooner with TRS, the Teacher Retirement System of Texas. Just another option. So, the application process. We are going to ask you a number of things to bring in, and I want to go over those with you. The most important thing is start early. We ask that you really start the process 60 days in advance. We don't like surprises, you don't like surprises, and the best way to avoid surprises is to make sure everyone's on the same page as far as the amount of vacation, sick leave, service time, all those type of balances that are there. Go to your personnel clerk, go to the city, because we don't keep those balances. But we'll ask you for those balances when we do your estimates, for example. And if you don't give us good balances, then when we send your application to the city to verify your service and your sick leave balance, if you have breaks in service and those type of things, think about those, because that all affects potentially how much time you've put in as far as service credit, and it may have an effect on your benefit. Again, we don't like those surprises. I know you don't like those surprises, and the best way to avoid those surprises is to start early and figure out what your balances are. Sick leave balance, your service credit balance. How long have you participated in the plan? If you had leave without pay time, you may have forgot about it, but if you go talk to your personnel clerk, see if you had any. If you didn't, fine. But if you did, figure out what that is, because that may reduce, or that will reduce, potentially the amount of time that we have for calculating your pension retirement benefit. So start early, make sure there's no surprises. It's a lot easier to take care of on the early side, on the front side when you're thinking about it. It's a good thing to do. Also, you'll need to schedule an appointment with one of our benefit technicians. And their names are here, Esmeralda Aguirre or Pauline Castillo, and their phone numbers are here. They're in the pension office located at 1039 Chelsea Street, and they can be reached at 212-1791 or 212-1790. You schedule an appointment with them, come in, tell them what you're thinking. They'll be able to provide you an estimate within a reasonable period of time. You can look at that estimate, go forward, and think about other things that we've talked about to figure out whether it's a good time to go or not. If you start early, again, look at those payroll records, make sure our data is consistent with theirs. If you have any questions regarding breaks in service, leave without pay times, we can answer those. Request an audit of your personnel file. Make sure that your time meets those minimum vesting standards, because if you retire and we send your application to HR and they say, no, you don't meet the minimum vesting standards, we won't be able to pay you a monthly amount. We may be able to pay you a refund, but it's less than what you would get over time typically in a retirement benefit. Don't wait till the last minute. If you wait till the last minute to resolve these issues, you either have to delay your retirement or it may reduce the amount that you're able to receive. You must complete your application within 30 days of termination of employment. The pension ordinance is specific. We want you to come in and apply while you're an employee, but you have up to 30 days after you cease to be an employee to come in and make an application in our office. Otherwise, you have to go before the Board of Trustees and establish good cause why you were not able to file your application timely, and they can deny your benefit. So don't risk that. Start early, get it in within 30 days of termination, and preferably while you're an employee. As you exit your employment with the city, there'll be a separation and clearance form, and you'll be asked to come to our office anyway, but remember, there is a consequence if you just don't apply. We'll ask you to bring some documents with you when you apply. We'll need your birth certificate, a certified copy thereof, your Social Security card. If you're married, your spouse's birth certificate, your spouse's Social Security card, your marriage license or marriage certificate. If you have children under age 19 or any who are incapacitated and dependent on you, we'll need their birth certificates and their Social Security cards. We'll need a voided check or a bank letter showing your account number, routing number, and the type of account that you have, and the account number's name. That way, when we produce a monthly check, it's going to the right place. All of our payments are made via direct deposit except the first one, which may be in the form of a check. But you've got to bring a lot of things with you. These are the things you've got to bring with you. We'll remind you when you come in for an appointment, but if you have them ahead of time, you're watching this video, congratulations, you'll know what to bring. Certified copies are acceptable, or the originals. So here's the steps again. Request an estimate. We don't like surprises. You need to figure out, do I retire now? Do I retire later? What am I going to get in retirement? We'll be able to prepare an estimate of all your options and hopefully answer all your questions that you might have. You'll be given a copy of the estimate, and you'll have to make a decision regarding the options, regarding optional settlements. We'll give you those amounts at the same time. When you're ready to complete your application, you've received an estimate, we've answered your questions, you're going to make an appointment to come in and file that application. If you're married, bring your spouse. They're going to be required to sign the application on your optional settlement that you selected. And they, by signing, indicate they understand what you've selected. It's your retirement benefit, but again, community property, we want them to understand what optional settlement you're selecting. You'll also be required to file a W-4P for income tax withholding. So at the time you come in and actually file your retirement application, it's an additional form we'll ask you to fill out. Remember, most of your benefits taxable. This form helps us withhold the tax that's necessary. You'll be required to complete a form for the direct deposit. Again, with the routing number and account number and all that, bring a voided check. You'll be also asked to provide us with a notice of termination to your department head indicating the exact date which you're going to retire. It's not good enough for us that I'm going to retire sometime next year. We can't calculate a benefit based on that. We need the day that you're actually terminating employment. So it could be 30 days in advance, but I need the date that you're actually going to terminate for calculating a benefit. You'll be directed to the Benefit Services Department to discuss insurance coverage, which you may or may not want. But again, that's a deduction that may come out of your retirement monthly payment. Again, we don't really deal with insurance other than direct you to them where they can discuss the options with you. Retirement payments are made on the last working day of the month. So if the last working day is a Friday, you get paid on a Friday. If it's a Tuesday, you get paid on a Tuesday. We need to know when you change your mailing address. It must be made in writing at the current point to our office, 1039 Chelsea Street. And if you change your direct deposit information once you become a retiree or your withholding information, then that needs to be reported to our office. You'll actually be asked to sign another W-4P form. And so as you retire, once you retire, you come to our office and we'll help you keep all of your account information current. So I hope I've answered your questions today that you may have had, but no doubt you may have others. Contact our office. Our phone number is 212-0112. Fax our office at 212-0113. Our staff is there to help you. I hope this has helped you, and I wish you nothing but success in whatever you're doing now, but also in retirement. We welcome you to come and see us anytime.